The sun is no joke, folks. Like,
Yeah.
I won't even threaten to share these pictures, but I do feel like I have like vitiligo right now. That's what it
Yeah,
looks
the
like. I
pictures you
am,
sent you did look like it.
yeah, I'm like multiple shades. I look like a Dalmatian.
This is On Call. Else it'd be really cool to just wear scrubs all the time. Then you don't have to think about what you're going to wear to work. Joke is awesome. We're here to answer your questions. We can sit down and discuss them. Wait, I gotta go. I'm on call. Wait, you're on call? I thought I was on call.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of On Call with April and Alicia. I'm Alicia.
I'm April.
And we are happy to be back again. April.
For some reason, when you
like,
just said
again.
that opening, I was
Again.
like waiting for you to say I'm April. I don't know why I like expected you to say that, but
I always want to say I'm April because it just throws you off. Because one time I just want you to go, and I'm Alicia, and then I'm like, see,
might have
nailed
today,
it.
actually. For some reason, I was waiting for you to say I'm April. I don't know why.
And I'm April, and I'm April. Or if we go back to our medical director summit over the last couple of years, I've always been referred to as April. So I guess it's a good insult if we have to be one. So I'll just be April. Hi, April. I'm April. Happy summer, April. How is summer going for you guys?
It's good.
Yeah. Is it hot?
It is. It's hot and humid. So I have to wait till the evening time to walk Baxter when it's cooler out. And he'll go out on the deck, like when he has to go to the bathroom, he goes out on the deck and his one back paw, like it must be more sensitive than the others to the heat, and he'll like lift it up. Like he's like, ouch, ouch. The girls are like, what's wrong with Baxter's paw? I'm like, I think it's the heat on the deck. And he has found a new spot under my desk. Usually there's a couch behind me in my office that he always lays on. But now he's under my desk. Right now, he's laying on my feet under my desk because there's an air vent like right there. So he has his head on the air vent and he just lays here all day under my desk.
Oh, he's hot.
I know. Yeah.
Normally I'd say put a sweater on, but can't do that.
I think he needs a tank top, probably.
He needs
like a muscle shirt.
He needs a Speedo. Let's get Baxter a Speedo. That would be great.
We've also had a lot of thunderstorms, and he hates those.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, does he get anxiety with that?
He does. Like last night we had one that was really long, rumbled for a long time. And he's been hiding in our master closet during them. Used to be the bathroom downstairs, but if we're upstairs, he wants to be upstairs. So he's in our closet. So I went in last night when I went to go to bed, and he would not come out. And he was like laying and his head was like in a puddle of drool that he had been like, poor guy. So
that's like Maddox when he sleeps in a puddle of drool. So gross. But the thunderstorms, I know they're really supposed to be kicking up. In all seriousness, Hill Country, which we got a site there, got really rocked this last month or so. I think they're in their second round of additional rain and additional flooding, and it's just been like incredibly tragic to see what's happening down there. So anybody down in that Texas area, like our thoughts and prayers are definitely with you. And I know Sound has had some response, especially with our sites being down there, and we've got providers. I think I was sharing with you yesterday, one of our APPs that is on the ground volunteering in like med tents on her own, and I think that's like kind of just
to watch
it is. You just don't think about inland flooding that way, and I think Helene was probably the first one that got my attention when she came through Asheville, and you just don't think of the effects of a hurricane inland like that, or that flooding. And I think I've just learned so much about like how dry the ground is, and then it rains and the ground doesn't absorb it, so it just like runs down these mountains and like wipes these people out like in seconds. It's so scary. So
it's really scary.
I know we're getting I think back end of storms that are moving through, but our thoughts or prayers are definitely with all those people in Texas, and even our Sound family that is attending to those victims of that tragedy.
Yes.
I know I told you on our last episode that I was going to Mexico, and I did just this little solo trip, and I showed you the pictures of my sunburn.
Yes.
And I realized...
Did you pay attention during our skin cancer episode?
Well, I thought about our skin cancer conversation the whole time, because one of the things you talked about, you're like, the first time you have like a serious burn, or there was some statistic that you were talking about like basically the degradation of our skin as it gets more exposure to actual burns. And I think I said with my whole chest, I've never had a sunburn. I've never had a burn like that. And I
Uh,
had not. I might have had like a little light type of a burn, but nothing like what I just experienced. And for the short version, I really still don't know, April, if it was a reaction to the sun block. It was a 50 that I used, by the way. Sun index was 13.
I was
But
thinking about that though, that like maybe you used bad sunscreen.
that's what well, it's like beef tallow or something. It was like some natural stuff that um it just didn't have like all the chemical additives. It's stuff that's typically banned in like the UK. Is
Have you used it before?
no, no.
Mm.
And I got as I told you, but for listeners, like probably 2 or 3 hours out in the sun with a 50, face, shoulders, everything. I got these blisters on my shoulders. I got a blister on my forehead. I am still, we're a week, almost two out now. I am still peeling. I think I shed several layers of a skin like a snake. But I've got these like ulcerated areas in my shoulders and like on my head that from the blistering. It was the wildest
It looked
experience.
really bad in the pictures and video you sent me. So maybe don't use that sunscreen again.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably a good one, Sherlock. I don't plan on doing that, but the other thing I thought was like, you know how I think one of our skin cancer questions too was getting a base tan. Like, do base tans help? And I think the answer was no, that's like you really can't prepare your skin for the sun, but I don't know. I might challenge that one a little bit. I lived in the sun. You know that. Like yeah, I say by 2018 to maybe 2022, somewhere around that time. I was in Mexico all the time. Our family, we were always down there. I was like so tan and so, I guess, sun exposed that I realized, first of all, how much melanin I had lost over the last couple of years. But two, like I felt like it was the first time I'd ever been in the sun. That's how my body reacted to it. It was insane. The sun is no
Huh.
joke, folks. Like
Yeah.
I won't even threaten to share these pictures, but I do feel like I have like vitiligo right now. That's what it
Yeah,
looks
the
like. I
pictures you
am
sent you did look like it.
yeah, I'm like multiple shades. I look like a Dalmatian everywhere from head to toe. And I think my kids are a little like embarrassed by it because like Juliana will go, "Are you gonna put a like? Do you want to put a like a long sleeve shirt on?" Like if I was going to
Like if
take her
you're
to the
gonna go out in
volleyball tryouts.
public.
She's like, "Do you want to put
Yeah.
a long sleeve shirt on?" And I was like, "I don't really want to have anything touch my skin right now." And she goes, "You should put a long sleeve shirt on." I'm like,
She is embarrassed about
I
you.
understand. I'm sure, but I mean, my legs are peeling, my arms are peeling, my shoulders are peeling, like everything. I
Well, it's
look
so hot out. You
like
can't go out and
skin is
like
falling off.
fully
I know.
clothed.
And then you add 90 degrees and like 80 million% humidity to it, and you're like, I don't want to put more clothes on, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So I definitely did burn.
She's at that age.
That was definitely a wild one. So that was my very exciting update for everybody. Just so everyone knows, I will be going back. I just won't be using the same sunscreen this time.
I was thinking about you randomly the other day, and I was like, maybe it was the sunscreen she used. It had to have been.
Yeah.
It
I
just
was like, there's no way you use a 50 and
and you burn like
so
that.
and I even thought even if it was defective, or if it wasn't defective, I'm wondering if I even just had a reaction personally
Yeah,
to it
maybe.
and then like had it in the sun. Who knows? But whatever I mean, I reapplied it. I kept putting, but I only have the severe like boil, like blisters where I applied it. Top of my thighs, my face, my shoulders, and anywhere I could get it, like with my own hands. Nowhere else am I
Mm,
peeling, just where I applied
yeah.
it. But speaking of that, speaking of burns, it made me think about a topic today to kind of move out of what we normally do. But in that same vein, when I got home, I have this Echo show in my kitchen and it just brings up these random news stories during the day, and I saw this story about this little 15-year-old. I shouldn't call him little. This 15-year-old gentleman, his name is Hemen Beckel, He's Ethiopian, and like the headline was can like there was something like can soap cure skin cancer? And like the prompts come up, they, go to the next prompt. But I was so like interested that I was like, let me just hit play on this story. And I was really, really, really just intrigued by what this 15-year-old was doing. So I thought what we could do, maybe I wanted to share this article with you, and maybe we just do more of a like a news update, what's going on in medicine, and just have a little bit of dialogue around what's moving and what's on the horizon for us in medicine. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm in, of course. That's what I always say, right?
Well, you don't have a choice. You're you're forced to be here. Okay.
Let's do
Well,
it.
so Hemin, as I was mentioning, this 15-year-old, he's actually lives in Virginia, but he's Ethiopian. He made Time Magazine's 2024 Kid of the Year, but he developed this bar of soap that delivers a skin cancer drug. And I'm probably going to botch the pronunciation, but I think it's imiquimod, 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 for those looking it up. But imiquimod, it's a topical immune response modifier. He wanted to use it in soap because he wanted to create an affordable, easy to use solution for early stage skin cancer that could really be impactful in the underserved in sun exposed communities. So his reference was, his mother's Ethiopian, his father's Ethiopian. They were immigrants to America. Um, but he talks about the prevalence of skin cancer. It also made me think of our podcast episode because we did talk about, the more melanated you are, that there were these false narratives that darker people, and people like myself are less prone to
Right.
melanoma or severe skin cancers because of our melanin, which he was actually sharing some data that's actually not just kind of wrong, but really wrong, because there just isn't the healthcare infrastructure that's set up in those areas in Africa where it, like specifically what he was talking about in Ethiopia, where they're out in the fields all day and they are, doing their best to create protective layers, hats, long sleeves. They are trying to protect their skin, but they don't have SPFs and any sun protection. And there are a lot of people that are dying from skin cancer, but there's just not enough data because I guess they're not monitoring and or diagnosing it. But it is a bit more prevalent according to what Key shares than um, than we may think. So, like I mentioned, like the early years in Ethiopia, he was really inspired by that and noticed that the more laborers that were exposed to intense sunlight without protection, that they were getting sicker and sicker. So he just kind of conceptualized this way to embed this medication into just a common hygiene product. So it was just a thought for him. He won the 3M Young Scientist Challenge, and he's now working, excuse me, working under a mentorship with Johns Hopkins, and testing the possibility of patenting the product, which I thought
Huh.
was really,
Interesting.
really cool. And he's like the soap could be produced for under $10 per bar. And what he talked about was nanoparticles in the medication. So the soap is the carrier, and you use the soap on the skin, but even though the soap washes off, it deposits the nanoparticles, and
Hmm.
those nanoparticles begin to work to treat the cancer. But
Interesting.
I thought it was really cool. I was like, his
Is
vision.
it
Go ahead.
is it preventative or is it for people who have it?
It is right now. It is for early diagnosis,
Oh,
but understand he's in early phases.
right.
So I think what I did here, and he was interviewed, but then I also pulled some articles just to make sure I doubled down on the right information. But I think there is a potential for it to go both ways, but I don't think that you could use this medication, this therapy, preventatively. I think it is to treat like early dysplastic cell.
I see.
Um, so I just think it's really incredible to me when you think, okay, $10 a bar, he's solving for, what his experience has been in Ethiopia and his people, but really how that could help our vulnerable and marginalized populations even here in the United States with, excessive sun exposure. Exposure, I think, again, our podcast we talked about, we don't even think about exposure through windows when we're sitting at our
Right.
desks and pilots and things like that. But this guy, this 15-year-old just may have redefined skin cancer, either prevention or early treatment with the bar of soap. This guy took a common hygiene product, infused it with nanoparticles, um, won this young scientist challenge. This kid, again, 15.
It's pretty
And more than
impressive.
that, I know this kid's building a nonprofit to make it accessible globally. And it's not really just innovation. You have to think of the heart of a 15-year-old, that it's got to be compassion driven, that
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really something that's touched him. And he's got his heart and soul poured into something as simple as soap.
Yeah.
It makes me very, very hopeful for our future, our children, like the innovation of our kids. And sometimes maybe we make things so complex that the simpler solutions, or they say that Occam razor, right? Like the simpler solutions, the more likely solutions are the usually the more appropriate outcomes, I guess, here, or maybe like we don't have to make things as complicated as we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I'd love to know and what your thoughts are, like how do we better support like youth driven innovation like this? Like how I'd love to see more. I'd love to like wonder what your daughters could come up with, or my children could come up with, as far as thoughts and things that sound so out there. Um, I'm sure that like when he first said a bar of soap, somebody was like, "Womp womp," like, "No way, that'll never work." But I, how do we inspire these kids to keep thinking like this? How do we do that? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to, I mean, from a parent perspective, you just have to encourage them, right? Like, I mean, my girls, one probably more than the other, will often kind of be like, "Oh, we should do this or that." Like, she's very kind of think outside of the box, innovative mindset. And so whenever she comes up with ideas, I kind of, I have to foster that. But I think I mean, eventually it has to be, excuse me, through, I think, education systems, things like that, that they sort of
Yeah.
escalate some of this stuff. Like, so my one daughter, she won a scholarship here, and it's like a college scholarship, but you can apply every year and you can get recognized. And I think that organization is the Carson Scholar. I don't know if you've ever heard of it,
Mm-hmm.
but Ben
No.
Carson has a scholarship program. And so through there, like there's been a lot of kids who have done, like when you go to the ceremony for the award, they can get recognized like pretty much every year, that they do. They're very focused on the community service and developing things to help the communities. And so, they have kids who have come up with like amazing things and enacted them in the community. So I think you just need to find those ways to, or some way to support them in doing that, right? I mean, they have
Mm-hmm.
to, but I think from a parent perspective, you just have to encourage
Yeah.
that thought process in your kids as they're getting older, right? Like,
It's interesting you
so
say that because I do remember one part of the interview, and I may misquote this, but the the anchor or the interviewer was asking he and his mom, how do you support him when he asks these questions? And mom was just talking about, I let him ask questions,
yeah,
and I do my best to answer. And I think the reporter kind of like drills in a little bit and says, "Well, you don't know anything about medicine." And she doesn't say it like that abruptly, but essentially saying, "Well, you don't know. How do you answer like the questions he's asking you?" And was like, "I don't, but I help him find the areas where they can
right,
be answered." And instead of saying you can't do that, or instead of saying, "I don't know, find something else to do," like she's like, "How can I help you find these answers?" And that's really what got him down this pathway. But on top of that, I will tell you, he's a pianist, and a incredible pianist on top of it too. So probably incredibly right-brained as a thinker, but it's just parents support him and support his thoughts. And even again, parents, sometimes we don't have all the answers, right? Um,
right. I mean, I tell the girls all the time, they ask me a question, I'm like, I don't know. Let's look it up,
yep.
And I think too is I sometimes have to catch myself because, as a parent, as somebody who works, like we're busy all of the time. And so sometimes I have to catch myself because she'll want to just like talk about something or, ask me questions about something. She's very curious. And
Hmm.
sometimes I sort of find myself being like, ah, like I'm in the middle of an email or something. So I have to like remind myself to stop and take the time, right? To have those conversations with her and help her.
Yep,
Because she is, she's curious and she's developing her mind, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, I think we could probably talk for days, and maybe this is one of those one-off podcast topics that we do. But for purposes of this episode, I'll keep this one short. But parents, teachers, clinicians, all of us, like, encourage our youth, challenge their thoughts. As crazy as some things may sound, it really may be the key to like unlocking cure in our future.
yeah.
So
It's
keep it
interesting
simple,
that you bring up
stupid.
a soap too, because I've seen, a lot of different soaps, that have come out, but there's been some where I think it was like like a teenager or somebody who, and I forget the name of it, they developed a soap for acne in sports players, because they get like that body acne because they're constantly sweating and you get bacteria.
They're a risk for
And
MRSA, to be MRSA carriers too. A lot of
yeah.
athletes are.
And so this particular soap, I wish I remembered the name, but um, a lot of people are saying like they've been using it on their kids, their athletes, and like it's getting rid of the acne for them. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
Soaps.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was really excited to see that story. I think it gave me a little bit of renewed hope, and not that I lost hope, but it's like nice to just see new innovation
Yeah,
outside of just AI.
for
Um,
sure.
I'm loving to see like hands-on human innovation and not leaning specifically on machines to solve it for us either. So it just kind of got my spirit lit a little bit. So what's your story?
Yeah.
What do you have?
Well, mine's not as exciting, but I
Oh, I'm
think
sure it
it's
is.
I think it's one that I resonates with me a little bit, and I think it was needed. And so there has been some discussion about defining obesity. So, as
Hmm.
we grew up as clinicians and our providers, obesity was always based on the body mass index, right? Like if their
Yes.
BMI was over this, they were obese. And I remember, like, I think back to when I was like, must have been high school or college. I was getting a physical for something, some sports or whatever. And I remember the lady saying to me, based on your BMI, you should be obese, but you don't look obese. Like I remember her saying that because
So
I was fit,
annoying.
right? Like I worked out and I had muscle and muscle weighs more than fat and all the things. And I specifically remember her saying that to me. And then I also think about all of the years in the floors of the hospital of the case managers coming to me and saying, "Hey, April, like this patient's BMI is this, like, are they obese?" And there was a lot of times where I would say, no, they're a very like fit, muscular person, right? Like they're an athlete or whatever. And so there's been some recent work on this, and they're kind of more looking toward using other measurements other than BMI to define obesity and to really
Good.
figure out who actually is obese and who actually needs treatment for those risk factors associated with it. So it'll include things like waist circumference, but also like evidence of like health problems like high blood
Right.
pressure or kidney disease or liver disease or heart disease. So there might be some people who actually have a low BMI but are
Hmm.
actually obese in these other
Hmm.
criteria, and they wouldn't have been recognized in the initial, measurement of it. And there's also people, like I mentioned, people who have high muscle density who were obese who probably aren't actually at risk for those things and wouldn't qualify in this new measure. So it just, thinking of my personal experience with it, I think it's a good move in medicine to do this. So
I think so too. You know what? It reminds me of four kids, and I'd say for the most part, outside of Maddox, all my other three were all considered like high on weight, like when they were peds, like in the first year or two. RJ thinned out pretty quickly, but I would just remember BMI being introduced early, even for peds,
yeah.
and struggling. And our pediatrician was amazing because she's kind of like, I don't really, I'm looking at RJ, he doesn't have 1 ounce of fat on his body. Like, she's just kind of like, I don't know, but this is what we have to tell you, like this is the height, this is the weight, this is the percentile that you're in. And then you're like, oh, you're 100 percentile for weight. And I don't think they were ever 100, but it always just made me feel guilty where I was like, oh, we're already defining obesity in children, or
Right.
toddlers at that time, which bothered me a lot. Because I didn't understand it. And I also, like kind of what you're talking about, was what were the health implications that were associated. These were healthy kids, and we weren't, it wasn't like they were short of breath with with exertion.
Right.
There was no like overeating. If for anything, I was actually concerned about, especially with the girls, developing eating disorders based
Well,
off
because
of.
of the label, right? Like that
Yes.
label, it impacts you, right? Like when
Yes.
somebody tells you, "Oh, you're obese," you're like, "What?"
Yes.
Like especially if you're, like a healthy kind of fit person, right? So
Yeah.
it can really mess, and I think especially like in females, and not that it doesn't impact males, but I think a young female who's developing, it's tough. So,
I wonder sometimes if men struggle a little bit more, and I'm not a male, so I wouldn't know, but just my experience with my sons, and just men in my life, my brothers and father and Matt, like, all that is, there's actually more of an insult when men are underweight, and RJ struggled a lot being underweight. Um,
yeah.
and there was a lot of, bruising to the ego and challenges as he was coming up through high school because he was smaller at first. A little late to go through puberty. I'm sure he'd love me telling everybody that, but he, he but he won't listen. It doesn't matter. So, but, um, like I think men are kind of opposite of women, where they'd
Right.
almost love to be considered overweight, or a higher BMI, where women, or young women and young ladies, girls that are developing, we are up against a cultural clash there,
Yeah.
of what we believe we're supposed to be, and a stigma there. So I hope we do move away from that. I always worry about what we could be telling people young,
Yeah. Well,
you
and
know.
ultimately too, we need to, recognize, right, the right population and look at their risk factors and optimize their health for them for preventative reasons too. So I think that this,
Yeah.
it sticks out to me that there's probably a population that has a low BMI, but really isn't as healthy as appearances seem.
Well,
So
that's like working in the ER. I remember a gentleman that came in, and he was mid 50s, very tall, thin. On the outside, you look at him and you'd say, this guy is incredibly healthy. Now, genetically, he might have had some, genetic risk factors for heart disease, but he suffered an MI. Um, and like I just remember telling people, like, obese, overweight people aren't the only people at risk, that we hide
right.
behind skinny in America, and skinny, like visually, equals health. When in actuality, some of the thinnest and or like most healthy, from the outside appearing people, have some of the most complex issues. They're
Yeah, for
malnutritioned in
sure.
some cases. You know what I mean? Or they still have they're thin, and maybe they've got a higher metabolism, and they're eating terrible food. But they just metabolize a little bit differently. So yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. And as uninteresting as you thought it was, I actually think it was a great article to pick. I'm looking at the clock, and I'm actually kind of bummed out because we're a little out of time as far as how we're recording, but here's what I'm thinking. I would love to continue this conversation, maybe in a part two, of our podcast. So what do you think if we for purposes of this week's episode, let's get this one out, and let's follow up on next week, or our next, excuse me, next episode, with part two, and we'll continue our discussion around what's happening with medical innovation and medical news.
Yeah, I like it. Let's do it. I think these
Okay.
these articles have been fun to discuss. So, and I think they're
Yeah,
relevant to a lot of people. So, great idea.
absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, listeners, for listening this week. And as always, if you have any suggestions for topics or things you want to hear about or
Yep.
feedback from us, you can reach us on LinkedIn, Instagram. We also have our email, which is oncallpodcast@soundphysicians.com.
Which
And
no one
remember that you can
uses.
watch your, what'd you say?
I said which no one uses, but that's
No one
okay. We
uses. I
we
don't
have
think
hope
we've
in you
actually
guys.
ever
We have
got a
hope.
single email. Zero. Not one. I watched the inbox. I don't think we've gotten a single one, but that's
We're
okay.
getting them we're getting them on Instagram and LinkedIn, but we're gonna, for you, one of you faithfuls out there that only knows email right now, we're keeping this open for you guys.
That's right. But yeah, so we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Until the next time, you guys stay well. We'll stay on call.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a good one.